Studying. It can be frustrating. How do you know what you're studying is working and that you are going to be prepared for that upcoming quiz or exam or whatever it is? And this is where active recall comes in. And in this video, we're going to go over how to use this technique so that you can study smarter, not harder. Active recall is a study technique that engages your brain like no other study technique that you've seen. This is a method that allows you to test yourself on the information that you have decided you need to remember. By being able to recall the information from your memory, what you're doing is activating your brain, your memory more specifically. And this helps to create a stronger memory, and it will make it easier for you to retain the information that you're trying to learn. So how and why does active recall work? It works by engaging more parts of your brain in the learning process than any other learning technique. When you're trying to recall information, you're not just passively reading the information in this technique. Instead, you're actively processing and encoding that information, which allows you to remember it later on. Active recall forces you to think creatively and critically about the information that you're trying to remember. Let's give an example of how you could use this technique. Say you have a history exam coming up. Instead of rereading your notes, try and recall everything you remember about the topic and write it down. Once you've done so, after writing it down, review your notes and see what did you forget. By doing this, it allows you to focus on what you need to remember versus studying information that you already know. This technique is quite beneficial when used because it helps you retain the information better in the long run. If you recall the information regularly, you're less likely to forget it, and it will allow you to focus on the information that you really struggle with and study smarter. One of the best ways to incorporate this technique into your studying is creating flashcards. Write the question on one side and then turn it over and write the answer on the other side. Test yourself regularly by looking at the question on the card and try to recall the answer purely from memory. Once you think you have the answer, check the back of the card. This helps you realize what you know well and where you need to focus your energy and attention on studying. In conclusion, active recall is a study technique that not only strengthens your grasp on information, but also strengthens your brain and memory. When you add in breaks as well, for example, active recall is going to help you remember important information when you need it most. So give it a try and see how studying smarter, not just harder, can save you both time and curb your frustration. Not only is active recall an easy technique to learn, but it's also scientifically proven to work. In a study done by Jeffrey Karpik, students were placed into 4 different groups. Within these 4 different groups, they were given the same material to study over a week. After the week, they were tested on the material to see how much of it did they retain. The first group was instructed to read the material once, and they were able to recall 30% of the information. Group 2, they were told to read it again. They recalled 50% of the information. The third group was instructed to not just read it, but to draw mind maps of the information, and they recalled 40% of the information. The fourth and the final group, they were taught the same technique that I'm teaching you, active recall. They recalled 70% of the information. Not only did active recall allow people to test higher in this study, but also it had another effect, a very important one. It allowed them to hold on to that information for far longer than others. Along with active recall, spaced repetition is another study technique that can be used to help you to study smarter and not harder. Spaced repetition has been around for a long time, and thankfully it's one of the most time-tested techniques that you can use. It's based on the forgetting curve, and by using this curve to our advantage, we can hold on to information for far longer. The forgetting curve is the concept that over time you start to forget information that you've learned. But with the practice of spaced repetition, we can practice recalling that forgotten information and see where we need to improve, the areas that we need to pay attention to. The reason that spaced repetition works is because the more we practice recalling information in those spaced intervals, the more likely we are to remember this information and it being stored in our long-term memory. Now, I know this may seem complicated, but it's actually quite easy to use. All you have to do to use this technique is space out when you revisit topics that you have learned. By revisiting the topics that you learn a day, a week, or even a couple of weeks later, this helps your memory to strengthen your grasp on the material that you learned, and it helps it to be encoded into that long-term memory center. Let's say in science class, you're learning about human anatomy. Instead of going back to the information every day, space out when you go over that topic. Go back to it a day later and see how much information you learned and what you need to study most. And then go back a week later and see how much you remember. This helps highlight your struggle points and makes it easier for you to study material that you need to focus on versus studying everything in a very scattergun way, and there may be things you already know well that you didn't need to focus on anyway, therefore wasting your time, energy and effort. Combined with active recall, spaced repetition is the best excellent technique that can help you to bring your A game to your next study quiz or exam. If you're struggling to focus and concentrate in life right now, and you feel like your ability to get the important things done is being hindered and diminished, check out my Discovery mini course. The Discovery mini course is going to help you learn things like the power of metacognition and self-awareness and using coaching models to harness your innate inner drive so you can get more done in less time. The natural supplements and herbs that are proven to boost your cognitive function and focus, and what the latest neuroscience teaches us and shows us about mastering our focus using a 15-minute mindfulness technique. And best of all, you can get through this entire course in just 20 minutes because there's just 2 steps that you need to take. So if you're interested, click on the link in the description and join me in discovering your full potential.